Hi, I'm Jane Rudolph.
And I'm Monsignor Charles Minor.
I'm Father Joe Glass. Welcome to Reel to Reel.
As we welcome you to Reel this evening, it's a pleasure to announce that we're going to have a wonderful history of the career of John Cardinal Krol.
This is a great historic week for all of us, and especially for me too, because I've been part of it from the very beginning when Cardinal Krol first came here, and having gone back to Cardinal Doherty's time, I think I'm kind of a link.
Yeah. I'm enjoying it. I'm new to the scene, and I'm seeing it from a distance from across the river in the Diocese of Trenton, but it's fun for me and exciting. It's just a wonderful time for the church in the Delaware Valley. A lot of vibrancy. It's good to share in it.
So as you join us this evening on Reel to Reel, we're going to review the illustrious career of John Cardinal Krol. We're also going to look at some lights which perhaps are dispelling fear in the hearts of children and the fear of nuclear worldwide war.
Father Tom Legere will join us later on in the program. I guess you might call his ideas tonight a second time around.
And we're going to have the opportunity to meet Bishop-elect Francis DiLorenzo, who is currently rector of St. Charles Seminary, but soon to be auxiliary bishop of the Diocese of Scranton.
And as we look at an era, as you come to the end of an era, it's time to reflect and really to celebrate all the accomplishments of a lifetime.
And somebody like Cardinal Krol, Jane, is very difficult to summarize. You start telescoping all these things to what he did, and to try to give you some kind of a notion of the whole presentation of his life is a great task. However, we want you to realize that the single incidents we have chosen are not at all final, but I think they do give us a great treasure of the memories we really have.
On February 11, 1988, the leadership of the Archdiocese of Philadelphia will be officially handed over from John Cardinal Krol to the new Archbishop Anthony Joseph Bevilacqua. This will mark the conclusion of an illustrious era in the Archdiocese. For the past 27 years, John Cardinal Krol has been a major influence not only in Philadelphia, but also on a national and even worldwide scale. John Joseph Krol was born on October 26, 1910 in Cleveland, Ohio, the fourth of 8 children of Polish immigrants John and Anna Krol. At age 18, John Krol realized the call to the priesthood and entered St. Mary's College in Michigan. From there, he enrolled at Cleveland's St. Mary's Seminary and was ordained on February 20th, 1937. During the following years, Father Krol gained many achievements, including the elevation to Monsignor and a doctorate in canon law. On July 11, 1953, Pope Pius XII announced the elevation of Monsignor Krol to Auxiliary Bishop of Cleveland. 8 years later, he was named the 10th Ordinary of the Archdiocese of Philadelphia by Pope John XXIII. As a spiritual leader, the new Archbishop felt it important to have a strong influence and concern for his clergy and seminarians. Under Krol's leadership, St. Charles Seminary in Overbrook flourished compared to seminaries in other parts of the country. The seminary obtained full accreditation from both the Middle States Association of College and Secondary Schools and from the American Association of Theological Schools. Other improvements included the addition of new residence and classroom buildings, expansion of the library facilities, the introduction of an apostolate program that would enable seminarians to become involved in field education work, and the option of ongoing religious training for priests, sisters, and laity. Catholic education also proved a priority for Archbishop Krol. His commitment to Catholic education resulted in the establishment of 8 new parochial high schools, the first being Cardinal O'Hara, named in honor of Krol's predecessor. Krol also took an interest in the special educational needs of the mentally ill. Under Krol's direction, St. Barbara's School for the Mentally Ill was moved to the grounds of St. Charles Seminary and renamed St. Catherine's Day School for retarded children. When it first opened in 1953, it was the first Catholic day school for the retarded in the entire country. Along with the growth in the archdiocesan school system, there was a growth in the population in suburban areas. In 1961, Krol formulated the Commission of Parish Sites and Boundaries to seek out the best sites for new parishes. During Krol's tenure, 33 new parishes were founded, and by 1985, Cardinal Krol had dedicated his 100th church in the Archdiocese of Philadelphia. Because of this continued expansion within the Archdiocese, the Cardinal realized the necessity of centralizing the various archdiocesan offices which were at that time spread throughout the city. Plans were formulated by a construction committee headed by Auxiliary Bishop Gerald McDevitt for a new building that would house all of the diverse departments. On December 17, 1971, the 13-story archdiocesan building located next to the Cathedral of Saints Peter and Paul on 17th and Summer Streets was formally dedicated. Today it is commonly referred to as 222, its address. One of the departments that moved to this new building was the Commission on Human Relations. This commission was established when Krol first came to Philadelphia because of his concern for victims of discrimination. Throughout the racial unrest of the 60s, the commission proved effective in promoting citywide peace. Today, the still active commission strives to provide programs that would promote interracial and interfaith harmony within the Archdiocese of Philadelphia. Krol also reached out to Philadelphia's needy by establishing the Catholic Social Services Department. Since 1969, this department has provided services in the areas of adoption and aid to the elderly and hungry. Catholic Social Services have consistently expanded to become one of the largest multifaceted social service agencies in southeastern Pennsylvania. Krol's influence spread from Philadelphia to reach worldwide proportions in 1962. When the Second Vatican Council opened on October 11th, Philadelphia's Archbishop played a vital role in Vatican II, which he himself would describe as the event of the century. Pope John XXIII appointed Krol as one of 5 undersecretaries of the Council. He also served as a member of the Central Coordinating Committee. Archbishop Krol actively participated in every meeting over the 4 years that the Council was in session. On the national level, Krol has been a leader in the United States Catholic Conference and National Conference of Catholic Bishops. He was elected to a 5-year term as the first vice president. From 1971 to 1974, Krol was president of the conference. Krol holds an unsurpassed 13 consecutive years of service in elected positions.
It is a privilege and honor to welcome to this Cathedral of Saints Peter and Paul the personal representative of the successor of St. Peter, who bears the name of St. Paul. His Eminence Cardinal Knox comes to Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love, as the legate of His Holiness Pope Paul VI to the 41st International Eucharistic Congress.
In 1976, while the rest of the country was busy with patriotic celebrations, Krol had the distinct honor of hosting the 41st Eucharistic Congress, which brought global attention to the city of brotherly love. Along with such notables as President Gerald Ford, Mother Teresa of Calcutta, and Poland's Cardinal Wojtyla, now Pope John Paul II, thousands of faithful flocked to Philadelphia to participate in the Eucharistic Congress liturgies and lectures. The last Eucharistic Congress held in the United States took place in 1926. The eyes of the world were once again on Cardinal Krol and on Philadelphia when in 1979 Pope John Paul II, a close friend of Krol's, made Philadelphia a stop on his first American journey. More than 1 million people gathered at Logan Circle to share in the pontiff's celebration of the Eucharist. Krol's guidance over the years has not only earned him the respect of spiritual leaders, but political leaders as well. In 1964, President Lyndon Johnson appointed Archbishop Krol to serve on the National Committee of Citizens for Community Relations. During Richard Nixon's term as president, Cardinal Krol accepted an invitation to preach at the White House during worship services. In 1979, Cardinal Krol gave an inspiring congressional testimony on SALT II, speaking out against the threat of nuclear arms. And during the 1980 presidential elections, Ronald Reagan and his wife Nancy visited the Cardinal at his Philadelphia residence. Although Krol includes his encounters with such political figures as professional highlights, the Cardinal values his many personal achievements as well. One such highlight for Krol came on June 19, 1977, with the canonization of John Newman, the first American male to be made a saint. John Newman's elevation to the sainthood gave prominence to Philadelphia, as it was the only diocese in the country to have a former bishop canonized. And currently underway is the cause for yet another Philadelphia native, Mother Catherine Drexel, foundress of the Sisters of the Blessed Sacrament. Her cause was officially opened in February 1964 by the then Archbishop Krol. 23 years later, on January 26, 1987, Mother Catherine Drexel was declared venerable bringing her one step closer to sainthood. A milestone in Archbishop Krol's priestly career came on June 26, 1967, when Pope Paul VI elevated him and 25 other prelates to the College of Cardinals. Among those 25 was Pope John Paul II. Krol will remain an active member of the College of Cardinals until the age of 80. Years later, February 1987, marked the Golden Jubilee of Cardinal Krol's ordination to the priesthood. For 50 years, Cardinal Krol served as teacher, leader, and shepherd. Thousands came together at the cathedral to commemorate this joyous occasion. During his homily, Cardinal Krol remarked that there is no career so precious, so privileged, so enriching, and so valuable to mankind as that of a priest.
The Cathedral Basilica of Saints Peter and Paul will really come alive this week again, as we begin a new century, new idea of what the church can be in Philadelphia when the installation of Archbishop Bevilacqua takes place. And I think when Cardinal Krol walks into that cathedral, Jane, he just has to think of so many memories that place will be for him forever.
And stay with us for thoughts on the future with Bishop-elect Francis DiLorenzo coming up next.
Since 1981, Reel to Reel has been proclaiming the good news by bringing you stories of Christian faith in action. We do it by roaming the Delaware Valley, searching for people of faith, hope, and charity.
But like all modern media, it is an expensive proposition. If you're a new viewer, or if you've enjoyed Reel to Reel for many years, we'd like to thank you for watching and invite you to participate by actively supporting the show.
With costs rising all around us, we need your financial support. A donation of $5, $10, $20, or whatever you can send will help to keep us on the air.
Send your contributions to Reel, 222 North 17th Street, room 907, Philadelphia, PA 19103. And thank you.
Hello, I'm Gary Maddox. When I played with the Phillies, reading the pitcher gave me the advantage. But life is not a game. To give yourself the advantage, you have to be able to read. To get the help you need, call the Mayor's Commission on Literacy at 686-8652. Learn to read. It will change your life.
It is my pleasure to introduce you to Bishop Francis DiLorenzo. He's currently the rector of St. Charles Seminary in Overbrook and soon to be the auxiliary bishop of the Diocese of Scranton. Welcome to Reel, Bishop.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. Yes.
I hope it's a pleasure. How has your last few weeks been? It's got to be a hectic time in your life.
Well, I tell you, this, from the time I was told until about a week afterward, free-float anxiety. I keep on saying, I'm sure the professional world is entranced by that.
That's right. We should fill in our viewers. The announcement was made on the 26th of January, and that is how you described your reaction, of free-floating anxiety. Has the dust settled in that?
Ever so slightly. It takes you probably a couple weeks. I'm going to probably someday sketch out a book, the stages and levels of when this thing hits you and how you kind of mellow out eventually.
Yes, indeed. It's got to be nerve-wracking. How does it come about? I myself and a lot of us, I'm sure, are in the dark about that.
I guess for each person, it's kind of different. For me, I was up in Allentown and I was doing some relationship, trying to make a good relationship with our very, very fine client in Allentown, Bishop Welsh, for St. Charles Seminary here. And the secretary told me that I was called to the phone. So it was then I knew that I had to report into Cardinal Krol's office. So when I arrived there, after a discussion all the rest, he had explained to me the whole situation.
And you had no inkling of it up to then?
No. So there you're talking about free-float anxiety from that time on until the announcement on the 26th.
Yes, indeed.
But since that time, things have been really nice. I'll tell you, the people of Scranton have been tremendous in terms of preparing the celebration and taking away an awful lot of anxiety from me and certainly my parents. So it's terrific. They're terrific people.
They've smoothed the way. How about Bishop James Timlin up there? Have you met him before or ever worked with him?
I have been on these campaigns. Every January I go out to recruit for St. Charles Seminary, and I have visited Scranton a couple times, and both times we've had a marvelous opportunity just to sit and talk, not only about St. Charles Seminary, but a variety of issues. And he's always been a real fine fella. And since the time of my appointment, when I was into this anxiety, he was the greatest therapist a fellow could ever have. He was really a great guy. He was very reassuring. He was very helpful. Anticipated some of my questions with some answers. He was really a fine fellow, and is very, very good. He's a real hard-working bishop. Very hard-working.
Tell me about
bishop.
your feelings now. You've been out at the seminary that you've referred to a couple of times now. 5 years, 2 years as vice rector, then 3 as rector. What's the feeling or the anxiety level of leaving St. Charles?
I have that feeling that a good sense of satisfaction in having made an ongoing contribution. I think the 22 rectors before me have all made good contributions. I like to think that anyway. And I think I'm just one along the line, and I have that sense of satisfaction that I have made my contribution for this time and this era. But the next fella and the fella after him will have to meet newer challenges, and I'm sure they will make good contributions, and I'm sure or it's my hope that they're going to have the same kind of satisfaction I have leaving St. Charles Seminary. And I'm not leaving St. Charles Seminary with a sense of, I feel real bad. I feel a sense of deep satisfaction having served here.
Kind of a peacefulness about the
yes,
whole thing. Yeah.
but I'm going to say this, I am really excited about going to Scranton.
All right, let's see if we can flesh out that excitement. There's some themes in your priesthood and in your career that have been consistent, and I'm sure you want to carry those same themes with you to Scranton. What would some of those be?
Well, I certainly, the vast majority of my life has been spent in Catholic higher education, so I love Catholic higher education, and Scranton has done a very heroic job in building up the Catholic educational system in the diocese, and also too a variety of other support systems. That I'm extremely gratified with, and I certainly always hope that I can work with them and support that effort that they're already making. A great effort, I may add. And second of all, they have a theme that I've worked with for years in the context of higher education has been the issue of marriage and the family. So they have a real fine marriage and family program up there, headed by a very competent sister, and I think there's a tremendous amount of cooperation that she's getting, and I certainly would like to lend my hand to that theme as well.
Supporting the family and marriage. Now,
That's
I've
right.
got one last question that I want to ask you. I noticed in the release about your appointment as auxiliary bishop, it said also that you're titular bishop of Tegia. Did I pronounce that right?
I'm going to find out where that's at. I'm in the process now. I don't know whether I should just buy bus tokens or whether I have to take a long flight. I'm sure this is airplane, whether this is train, or whether this is car.
You can't get there from here, Bishop.
Right now, no, but I'm going to find out where it's at.
Now, explain to our viewers, how does this work? You're auxiliary bishop and a titular bishop of Tegia. Now, why is
Every bishop has to be based in some sort of a diocese. So those of us who are auxiliaries, they need a diocese. So they take dioceses of another time and another era to base you in. That's
all right.
And then if and when you become an ordinary, you no longer are the occupant of Tegia.
And now, you're not just keeping this secret so we can't visit you there. Can you give us any clue? What continent is it on?
I'm still working on that. But I'll come up with an answer next time.
We want part 2 on Reel to Reel.
Fine, you got it.
when Bishop DiLorenzo comes back, we'll find out where Tegia is. Thank you for being here. Back to you now, Monsignor and Jane.
The whole beauty of the church and the history of the church is in the episcopacy. The bishop has a continuous life. It goes in so many events which are around it, but the cycle of grace, I think, is so important, Jane.
And Tom Legere is going to pick up on that cycle tonight as he talks in our spiritual journey. Now, he lets us know that faith and our relationship with God is a process. It's a cycle. It's not something that we just accept and then forget.
Greetings in the Lord. There are many illusions that we have to overcome in life. And perhaps one of the greatest of all illusions is to think that we have been converted, that we have surrendered to God in our lives. In my own life, back in 1976, I went through quite a traumatic spiritual experience that included surrendering totally to God. But then I found out that as the years moved on, I was beginning to take back the things that I thought I had surrendered. When I spoke to my spiritual director about that, he just kind of laughed, because he wisely realized that the journey to God is a process. That is what is so puzzling to me about the claims of some of the fundamentalists who are certain that they have completely been saved because they surrendered to God once and for all a certain time back, and there hasn't been anything else to do since then. Well, that doesn't seem to be the experience of real people in the real world. The fact of the matter is that rather than going just in a straight line, in many ways our journey to God is kind of going around in circles. I think the Catholic tradition in particular is aware of this with its understanding of the liturgical cycle. In other words, we don't say, I don't need Lent this year, I had it last year. This year is a new agenda with new baggage that needs to be addressed. But lest we get too discouraged, in some respects, it's kind of like going around the spiral staircase. Sure, we go around in circles, but each time there's just a little bit more progress made. Now, some people are uncomfortable with that, of course. They want everything to be decisive and straightforward. But that's not the way it works. We are all constantly in process, constantly on the journey. You know, that's why they put erasers on pencils. That's why there are reconciliation rooms in every Catholic church in the world. People are always in process. Now, certainly there are going to be breakthroughs. And certainly in my life, I can point to a couple. But just when we feel we've made a breakthrough and made some progress, then God tells us, hey, guess what? You have to start all over again. I think the greatest challenge of all is precisely this, to accept the fact that we're never going to have it all together, and to accept ourselves in our own brokenness. As wounded healers, then, confident that God can still use us, we can all get on with the business of living and loving.
With Ash Wednesday and Lent just around the corner, perhaps it's time to listen a little more closely to Father Leger, especially on our spiritual journey.
Please stay with us, because we have another kind of journey to show you, lamps on the sea.
The project involved children from around the world making peace lanterns to float on rivers and ponds in a symbolic gesture of goodwill.
A long time ago, I had an abortion. At the time, I thought it was the only answer, the only solution. Then I woke up one morning with this incredible emptiness, and I started to cry, and I couldn't stop. You see, I never really dealt with the reality of my loss. Project Rachel helped me to realize God's love for me and allowed me to find forgiveness in His church and in myself.
If you need help, call Project Rachel at 609-546-8945.
We welcome your comments and suggestions and encourage you to write to us at Reel to Reel, 222 North 17th Street, Room 907, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 19103, or call us during regular business hours at 215-668-9842.
This evening, we've seen the fruits of hard-working, diligent adults who have dedicated their life to a certain journey. We've looked back upon the past, and we've also looked forward to the future.
And in the future, it's always the fact that little children will lead us. We adults certainly will do the work, and we're hard at it, always creating new ideas, but we do have a tendency to become over-serious about it and miss maybe the major point. Witness, for instance, how children go simply directly to the heart of a matter. Watch, for instance, how they address peace by using a peace lantern.
The project involved children from around the world making peace lanterns to float on rivers and ponds in a symbolic gesture of goodwill. Here's how it looked in Corpus Christi as area children and their families participated.
Hear our voice, O God. Hear our voice, for it is the voice of all the victims of war.
The lantern floating ceremony actually began in Japan many years ago to commemorate the victims of the atomic bombing of Hiroshima. The floating lanterns symbolize the burnt bodies which clogged the branches of the Ota River in Hiroshima. In Japan, each lantern bears the name of a person killed in the bombing. In Japanese tradition, there is an ancient belief that water can restore life by bringing back the spirit that has departed from the body.
Love is flowing like a river.
Last year in La Crosse, Wisconsin, over 5,000 people participated in the floating of 1,500 peace lanterns on the Mississippi. It's a vision of hope, which will hopefully flow to life-giving waterways of the world.
I think the children were really impressed by it. They all drew such beautiful messages about peace, and most of them are hoping that they'll hear from the Russian children. And most of them had the same kind of a message, you know, peace and friendship, love.
The children in Corpus Christi also sent separate lanterns to the children of Russia to float on their rivers. Included was a picture of each child, as well as information about their schools, hobbies, games, and sports.
The message for me is love and peace is the answer, not war and fighting.
I want peace for the Russian government, and I hope the kids just stay out of the crossfire.
As Jesus said in the Sermon on the Mount, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the sons and daughters of God."
It was so nice to have Bishop DiLorenzo on the program this evening, especially since he's been a regular on Viewpoint, and we'll certainly miss his insights.
They're fortunate to have him up in Scranton. I enjoyed chatting with him tonight. He's such a friendly, affable fellow.
It was nice to see you meet him, Joe, because, you know, each diocese has its own impact of history, and the seminary makes it, and I'm sure he's made his impact here very much.
Well, next week on Reel to Reel, if the ratings PG-13 and PG and R and whatever just seem like alphabet soup, well, Mike Gallagher is going to put things straight in morality and ratings.
Well, the straightness of our whole idea of the diocese will be shown to you next week as we show you some of the installation ceremony of Archbishop Bevilacqua.
We're going to visit some people who live in Washington, D.C., but they don't worry about the traffic jams down there because they make their living right in their own backyard.
So until next week, please take care.
Goodbye and God bless you.
Good night. See you next week.
Travel arrangements for Reel to Reel by Atkinson and Mullen Travel of Media, PA. Phone area 215-565-7070.
You've learned a lot in your life. Share the experience of a lifetime.
For years, the Men in Charismatic Renewal have been meeting for men's prayer breakfast.
Now we have a women's prayer luncheon that is even better.
Come February 16th to Williamson's City Line and Belmont Avenue.
Our luncheon begins at 12 noon.
Call area code 215-668-HOPE to get your ticket this week. Remember, 668-HOPE.
See you Tuesday, February 16th for lunch.